Hello and welcome to another edition of Dom Scupoli's The Spiritual Combat. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. The lesson this week, chapter 14, we're going to dive into the details of how we need to approach the temptations, our appetites, and when we're struggling with those appetites and with those temptations, and we feel ourselves giving in to those things that we know are not good for us. So, as we prepare ourselves to meditate and reflect on the lessons laid out by Dom Scupoli in chapter 14, get comfortable, get your favorite coffee or tea, pencil and paper if you like, as we will prepare the lessons for level 1 and level 2. Welcome to our channel. Our new name is going to be the Swords of St. Michael. Please click the like button, smash subscribe, because we will be bringing new content. Thank you for joining us. If you need more spiritual warfare books or spiritual warfare tools, there are links below to Prayers by the Bead for rosaries, devotions of all kinds, and more spiritual warfare prayers, including spiritual deliverance prayers, on our swordsofstmichael.org website. So, we're going to get started and pray ourselves in with our St. Michael prayer. Sancta Michael Arcangele, defende nos in prelio, contra nequitiam in insidiis diaboli esto presidium. Impedit ere Deus, supplicis deprecamer tuque, princeps maletia celestis, satana maliosque spiritus malignos, qui ad perditionem animarum pereganter in mundo divina virtute, in infernum detrude. Amen. Our research study prayer. Concede mihi misericordias Deus, quae ti placita sunt ardenter investigare, vericiter agnoscere, et perfecte ad implere, ad laudem et gloriam nominis tui. Amen. In English. Grant me grace, O merciful God, to desire ardently all that is pleasing to Thee, to examine it prudently, to acknowledge it prudently, to accomplish it perfectly, for the praise and glory of Thy name. Amen. Thomas Aquinas. The Spiritual Combat in a Treatise on Peace of Soul, Dom Lorenzo Scupoli, Chapter 14. What to do when the will is apparently overpowered and unable to resist the sensual appetites. If you ever fear that your will should fall before the lower appetite or other enemies that attempt to overcome it, if you perceive that your courage and determination are failing, hold your ground. Do not retreat from the field. You must regard the victory as your own, as long as you are not completely overcome. Just as your will does not need the consent of the lower appetite to make its choice, in the same way, the liberty of the will remains intact, despite any violence that this interior enemy may use. An absolute dominion has been given us by the Almighty. All the senses, the evil spirits, and the whole created universe banded together cannot diminish the liberty of the will in acting as often, in any manner, and to any end that it desires. But if at times temptations press you so hard that your will, almost overpowered, seems to lack sufficient strength to resist any longer, do not be disheartened or throw down your arms. Defend yourself and cry out, "I shall never surrender to you. I shall not submit to you." Act like a person who's struggling with a stubborn enemy and, being unable to pierce him with a point, attacks him with the hilt of the sword. Watch how he tries to break free, to retreat in order to charge with a greater strength, and to kill the enemy with one fatal blow. This teaches you to withdraw frequently into yourself. Recall your insignificance, your inability to accomplish anything. You will then place great confidence in the almighty power of God, so that you will be able, through His grace, to attack and conquer the passions that oppose you. Here you must implore, "My Lord, my God, Jesus, Mary, do not abandon your soldier. Do not permit me to be conquered by this temptation." Whenever the enemy gives you a breathing spell, call up your understanding to reinforce your will. Strengthen it with motives that will raise its courage and give it new life for the fight. For example, if you are unjustly accused or harmed in some other way, and in desperation are tempted to lose all patience, try to check yourself by reflecting on these points. 1. Consider whether you might not deserve the unpleasantness you are undergoing, and whether you have not brought it upon yourself. If you are in any way to blame, it is proper that you patiently endure the agony of the wound which you yourself have occasioned. However, 2, if you are not guilty on this score, glance back at some past offenses for which divine justice has not inflicted a punishment, and for which you have not sufficiently expiated by a voluntary penance. When you see that God, in His infinite mercy, instead of a long punishment in purgatory, or even an eternal one in hell, has decreed an easy and momentary one in this life, accept it, not merely with resignation, but with a joyous thanksgiving. 3. If you think without reason that your faults are few, that you do a great amount of penance, remember, the road to heaven is narrow and full of obstacles. Even if you could find another road, a burning love should prevent you from considering it. For the Son of God and all the saints after Him took no other road than the thorny path of the cross. 5. What you should keep in mind at this and all other times is the will of God. He loves you so tenderly that He is delighted with every heroic act of virtue you perform, and with the return of your fidelity and courage to His immense love. Remember also that the more unjustly you suffer, and consequently the more grievous your affliction, the greater is your merit in the sight of God. For in the midst of your suffering you adore His judgments, and willingly submit to His divine providence, which draws good from the greatest evil, and makes the malice of our enemies subservient to our eternal happiness. Wow, huh? It's interesting that I can read this and I can pray about this and I can get some direction. And then here I am recording this, and there are so many facets that this lesson can apply to in our daily lives with all the interactions that we have with everyone, including people we work with, people we don't know, our neighbors, our family, our roommates, people we may share a household with, people we may never see again in a public instance. Suffering is not just something that wounds us, that is a continual affliction of pain. Suffering can be something as simple as somebody hitting us with a cart in the ankle. That hurts pretty bad. Or somebody positioning themselves at your place of employment and receiving a raise or an upgrade in position that you ought to have had. That would be horrific, and that's terrible. It happens all the time. So when we look at the occasions for suffering, for the opportunity on how to resist the temptation to give in to our passions, what we're looking at here, the biggest message that comes out of this chapter is free will. When God said that He made us in our image, He wasn't saying, well, I look like X and you're going to look like X. He wasn't saying that, well, because I sent my son to show you who I am, I raised the dead, with a word I spoke life, and you can do that too. It wasn't just that. He gave us free will. The same free will He has. And in this chapter, it points out succinctly all evil spirits, all of His created creation comes under the dominion of our free will that He gave us. Can anybody wrap their mind around it? If you can, write it down in the notes here. I am awestruck. Absolutely awestruck. My free will, your free will is that powerful, that strong as the Almighty's. No weapon forged against me shall prosper. Shall I will it not? Yeah, let's digest that one for a minute. He gave us a will so strong. He loved us so much. He gave us the power to conquer anything. Yet here we are, struggling with, as the incident described in the chapter, a tendency towards impatience, and you've been unjustly accused, and you want to immediately set it right and scream and shout and take vengeance and let them know that this is wrong. I have to right this wrong. And what this chapter is speaking to us is a spiritual exercise of exorcism. We do not have to give in to that temptation. We do not have to be a slave to our lower natures that is petulant, impatient, demanding, must be first, must be recognized, must be satiated, must be appeased. That's our lower nature and our lower passion speaking. Our will conquers and covers all that tempts us. That's a lot. So, as I go over some of my notes, as I said, that in itself leads us, whether we are looking at someone that just took our place in line at a local store, whether they've cut us off in traffic, whatever the injustice is that we see is an injustice that was created, and it was just went directly against what we know is right. This is the hard thing, is seeing the injustice and saying, no, I don't need to do anything about that. I can let God do that. So what I was focused on this lesson in my notes is that when we look at this and it says, all right, we have these opportunities to do something, to be something, to create peace. We have the opportunity to exercise all of this temptation, to get rid of all of it. We take the first step. We pray out loud. Lord, I will not give in to the pornographic website. I will not give in to this affair that will destroy my spouse or my fiance or my significant other. I will not, just because I've taken pencils and pens from work, I will not tempt myself. I will not give in and do this at work anymore. Just because somebody slammed into me, I don't have to slam into them. We can say no. Number one, pray out loud. It clears the atmosphere. It changes the atmosphere. It commands. Our will commands. We ask Jesus and all things in Jesus' name. The heavens come to our aid. 2, screaming to Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, you need help. The Immaculate Heart. Mary, and for people that don't understand the beauty and the position that Jesus so loved his mother, we can look at any family structure as God created the family. And when somebody needs to reach the king, when somebody needs to get to dad, when all the doors are closed to the Father, Mary has the key that unlocks that heart, the merciful heart of Christ. So when we look at the pious heart of St. Joseph, the spouse, we have powerful intercessors in the Holy Family. So these prayers that you can just scream and say, Jesus, Mary, help me. Joseph, intercede for me. If you have a favorite saint, there's no reason why you can't call on your patron saint of your choice, your confirmation saint. If you are new to the Christian life, there are many beautiful saints that have specific patronage to everything from writing and being a student, and patron saints of travel and abuse, against poisoning. There are so many saints that will intercede for specific reasons, and it's no different than saying your sister or your mother's in heaven, pray for me. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful way to ask for more help. 3, I love this suggestion, because when you're coming up against something really difficult, and let's say you're on a 20-day bender because you've lost your job, you've lost your wife, you've lost your kids, and every night do the same thing. You go home to an empty house, you don't want to see it, you pick up a 6-pack and you sit and you drink your 6-pack until you can't stay awake anymore. That That's so horrific for any man to go through, man or woman, to lose your children, to be in a position to where you cannot have that family fabric. And it's so easy during this time to rely on pornography, on alcohol, on drugs, on things that tempt us and lead us away from God and invite us to more sin. So when you're looking at breaking that and stopping that, the devil is going to do everything in his power to keep you right where you are. Your friends are going to say, let's go out and drink. Your neighbors are going to say, come on over, let's have a beer in my backyard. You shouldn't drink alone. Yeah, but it's Wednesday. That doesn't matter. It's okay. It's just a couple beers. The devil is going to make the temptation that draws you closer look like a walk in the park. It's nothing. And, I've even talked to some cases that they rely on many published or online exorcists on YouTube, such as Father Ripperger, and he has a great quote saying that the merit lies not in rejecting that temptation that sucks you in, whether it's, the temptation to be angry and punch something or do pornography or alcohol or eat the whole cake. It's not in rejecting the entire temptation. The merit is in being able to either enjoy a good temptation, such as, the chocolate cake, like St. Teresa would say, Lord, I offer this up to you, and putting the rest away. You can't just try a little bit of pornography. You can't just try a little bit of drugs. This does not apply to that. This is applying to those things that we are overindulgent of, that we are, shall we say, we're not paying attention to what we could be doing differently. We're overindulging. So in that sense, we don't want to use Father or anyone else as an excuse to say, well, this is just occasional and this is just temporary or this is just one, because even if, let's say, even if you have a piece of cake every single night, just because it's just one, over 30 days, over 60 days, that's going to amount to stress, could amount to diabetes. I don't know. I mean, it depends if you have diabetes in your family, that sort of thing. You want to be very careful, because our minds can justify just about anything. Our minds are capable of listening to these suggestions and taking them to a different level that suits whatever we need, whatever purpose we have, and it will do it. It will make it seem so sweet and impolite if we don't indulge. So be very careful with this slippery slope. Now, for this week, level 1, this is really going to be a little bit more than I've asked you to do in the past, but I would like you to find and look for this opportunity that you're struggling to resist temptation. Wherever it is, I want you to find this opportunity this week. If it seems like a little temptation, like maybe having seconds or third helpings because you're struggling with weight and struggling with, indolent indulgence, that's still good. But this has to be a tough one that you have tried and tried and tried and you keep coming back to it. This has to be one of those things that the devil has your number on a calling card and he knows how to call you. So when you find that opportunity of temptation that you're repeatedly falling into, 3 things. Number 1, I'd like you to catch yourself in the situation, and I want you to contemplate Christ. Contemplate how choosing to do what you are choosing to do, whatever it is that you're struggling with, whether it's an angry outburst, whatever it is, contemplate Christ. Contemplate how this action could affect him if he were standing right next to you. How would it affect him? Every action here or in heaven. As is above is below. As Jesus tells us, anything you bind on this earth will be bound in heaven. Anything. So Jesus is standing right next to you. I want you to contemplate in your mind. Imagine this. How would he feel? How would he react? He died for you. That would be enough to stop you. 2, I'd like you to pray. Expository prayer is usually best, and as they suggested in this chapter, Lord, I will not partake of this temptation. I will not give into it. Say this prayer. 2 minutes, 3 minutes, a half hour. How long will it take you to walk away from something that you continually wrestle with? How can you learn to moderate a temptation or shake loose that demon of temptation that's tempting you to do something you know is not good for you? 3, I want you to trust. I want you, remember we were doing those prayers, Jesus, I trust in you? Remember that? I want you to hold your hand in front of your heart, and I want you to hold it, and I want you to fold it over, and I want you to imagine that you're holding on to your guardian angel. Your guardian angel, as you know, angel means messenger. He carries messages from God. I want you to tell your guardian angel that you're going to trust in God's mercy to help you with this. And if you need to do your guardian angel prayer, if you need to say an expository prayer that exemplifies and punctuates, I need you to punctuate the level of trust that you have. Because in our insignificance, we can do nothing without God. As strong as our will is, we have these forces that want to tear us away. So, level 2. For my more adept, prayerful, deeper diggers, for you, I would like you to take this 1, 2, 3 step into each day. Because I don't think we realize how often, and I was thinking about this this weekend, how easy it is for us to spew a vulgarity, to instantly judge someone and think, oh yes, this person is so-and-so. That's a temptation. That is dealing with our lower natures and giving into snap judgments, giving into, shall we say, immodest behavior. There are all sorts of opportunities. Look for one a day, 5 to 6 days, and go over the same formula. Okay? I want you to contemplate Christ as you make your choice. I'd like you to pray an expository prayer, and then I too would like you to either make the sign of the cross or hold your guardian angel's hand and espouse full trust in God's will, God's providence, God's time. And know too, this is the number one thing. People think that because we are constantly trying to form our consciousness, we're trying to be as on that path. We're trying to be as Christ, holding our cross. We're going to fall constantly. Saints were tempted to the day they died. We are not going to be without temptation. We are not going to be without a constant thorn in our side. And that's a lesson that my spiritual director gave me on one of the passages in Scripture from Job, that I was given an angel as a thorn in my side. And we'll go into that later. Our temptations draw us closer to God or draw us further away. That's all there is to it. And as we look at ways that we are trying to resist it, we have to remember that the opportunity of our will, the dominion our will has over everything created in the universe, it is all encompassing. We can do anything. Does anybody in the audience here remember the movie Sphere? Dustin Hoffman and Sharon, I can't remember her last name. What I took from this movie was what God was speaking to me. There's a sphere underwater. It was a group of divers sent below the ocean to go and look and figure out what happened to an entire crew. What was this underneath there? And they had to be mentally fit because they were going to spend a long time all the way at the bottom of the ocean. They were to look. They were not to touch. They were to gather information. They were not to engage. One person broke the rule. They were not to touch a golden, beautiful sphere in the middle of a crashed ship that they couldn't identify. Come to find out that the point of this whole movie is this sphere could create anything that the person was afraid of. It would create anything in their mind. So if they were afraid of, let's say, I'm not going to spoil the movie if you haven't seen it, but instead of actualizing beautiful things, like, why didn't they think about, a multi-leveled city under the ocean? They visualized death. And most of them died a very grisly death because their fears controlled their mind. Their will was strong enough to create this. And at the end of the movie, their will was strong enough to destroy that tool. So, as I bring this to a close with my level 2 people, I want you to list at the end of the week the number of victories as it's outlined in this chapter. Maybe you gave in a little bit, but your will was strong enough that you didn't continue to indulge. Count that as a victory because you still did not fully submit to your sensual appetite. Count your victories. And for every single one that you count personally, a loss, that you say, oh, I totally messed up, I can't do this, I can't do the spiritual warfare, I can't do the self-exorcism, I just can't. Count it a blessing. Because every opportunity that we have, every single one of them, God's calling you. He's calling you closer. He wants you. He's drawing you near. He's allowing you to be tempted. He's allowing you to see that you're tempted. Because he wants you and he loves you. Never forget, the battle's already been won. And I'm here to help you fight the fight. Sister Farah, professed religious Franciscan, religious demonologist. Over and out. God bless you. Keep smiling. And until next week, smash that like button and subscribe because we will bring you more and more eventually in the future and lots of great changes coming. So thank you. God bless. Good night.